You people don't belong here." The words slice through the marble lobby of Sterling Trust Bank like a razor through silk. Eleanor Vance stands at teller window 3, her weathered hands gripping a business check worth $15,000. The young white woman behind the bulletproof glass, Chloe, 23 years old with blonde highlights and perfectly applied makeup, stares at her with undisguised contempt. "Excuse me." Eleanor's voice carries quiet authority, but there's steel underneath the politeness. Chloe doesn't even look up from her computer screen. "Before we continue, tell us where in the world you are watching from. Drop it in the comments below. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more powerful content like this." I said what I said. We have standards here. Eleanor adjusts her modest navy cardigan, the one she bought at a department store clearance rack last spring, and slides the check across the marble counter. "Ma'am, this is a legitimate business deposit from Vance Capital Holdings to Vance Family Enterprises. I've been banking here for 12 years. Chloe finally looks up, her blue eyes narrowing as she examines Eleanor from head to toe. 12 years? I seriously doubt that. She picks up the check with the tips of her manicured fingers as if it might contaminate her. "This is quite a lot of money for someone like you." "Look at her," Chloe thinks, her internal monologue racing like a hamster on a wheel, acting like she owns the place. Designer knockoff handbag trying to pass herself off as someone important. I've seen this exact scam before. Some woman comes in with a sob story and a fake check. And stupid, trusting employees like me fall for it every single time. Above them, the bank's massive LCD screen cycles through corporate messaging, mortgage rates, investment opportunities, and customer testimonials. But Eleanor doesn't notice. She's focused on maintaining her dignity while her heart hammers against her ribs like a caged bird, desperate for freedom. What would you do if your own bank humiliated your mother? The fear gnawed at Chloe's insides like acid eaten through metal. Her last termination letter still burns in her memory like a brand. Failed to follow proper verification procedures, resulting in significant financial loss to the institution. $17,000. That's what her mistake cost her previous employer, $17,000 that made her unemployable for 4 months. 4 months of rejection letters and dwindling savings. 4 months of her daughter asking why mommy couldn't afford new school clothes. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to explain your relationship to Vance Capital Holdings." Chloe's voice carries across the lobby like an accusation, ensuring half the customers can hear every word. Because this looks suspicious to me, very suspicious. Eleanor feels 20 pairs of eyes boring into her back like laser beams. The weight of their stares presses down on her shoulders, but she keeps her voice steady. "It's my son's investment firm. He sends monthly support for our family business." Chloe lets out a small, cruel laugh that echoes off the marble walls. "Right. And I suppose you're some kind of business mogul." She turns to her colleague at the next window, raising her voice even more. "Can you believe this? She wants me to process a $15,000 check from some fancy investment firm. Claims it's from her son's company. Probably printed it on her home computer this morning." Her colleague glances over nervously, clearly uncomfortable with Chloe's volume and tone, but she doesn't intervene. Office politics are delicate things, and Chloe has been here longer. The humiliation spreads through Eleanor's chest like spilled wine on white fabric, staining everything it touches, but she refuses to show it. 60 years old, raised in rural Georgia by parents who survived Jim Crow and taught her that dignity isn't something you wear on the outside. It's something you carry in your bones. She knows how to swallow indignity and transform it into fuel for the long fight ahead. I can't afford another mistake. Chloe's mind screams, can't afford to lose another job. Not with my daughter depending on me. Not with her medical bills piling up and no insurance coverage for her asthma medication. This woman, with her knockoff designer handbag and her suspicious $15,000 check. I'm not falling for it again. Eleanor slides her driver's license, business registration, and banking statements across the marble counter with deliberate precision. Here's my identification and business documentation. I've performed this routine countless times over the past decade. Chloe examines each document with the thoroughness of a detective investigating a murder, but her expression suggests she's already made up her mind. Mrs. Vance, she reads slowly, pronouncing each syllable like it tastes bitter in her mouth. This address doesn't match what I see in our system. We moved to business office last month. I submitted the change of address form 3 weeks ago. Eleanor's voice remains steady, but ice forms in her stomach. She recognizes this look. She's seen it in department stores where security follows her through the aisles, in restaurants where servers ignore her table for 20 minutes, in doctors' offices where receptionists suddenly can't find her appointment. Well, there's no record of any address change here, Chloe announces triumphantly, as if she's uncovered evidence of a conspiracy. And frankly, this whole situation seems highly irregular. A woman like you claiming to own a business, trying to deposit such a large amount. The CEO's mother stands, unaware that her son's face will soon appear on the screen above. I'm going to have to confiscate this check pending investigation. Chloe reaches for the document with predatory fingers, but Eleanor pulls it back slightly. I'd like to speak with your manager, please. That won't be necessary. Chloe's voice rises another decibel, and she signals toward the glass-walled back office with theatrical urgency. I have full authority to handle suspicious transactions. Mr. Henderson, can you come here for a minute? We have a situation. Mr. Henderson emerges from behind his partition like a reluctant witness to an execution. At 35, he's climbed the corporate ladder by avoiding scandals and keeping his employees happy. His thin frame drowns in an off-the-rack suit that's seen better days, and his thinning hair can't quite hide the stress-induced bald spot that's been growing since his promotion 6 months ago. People think management is easy, Mr. Henderson thinks as he approaches the teller window, but they don't understand the pressure. One mistake, one complaint that reaches regional, and I'm back to being a loan officer making $40,000 a year. I've got 2 kids, a mortgage, and a wife who thinks I should be making more money by now. What seems to be the problem here? His smile is practiced plastic, the kind middle manager perfect for difficult situations that might spiral out of control. Chloe leans toward him conspiratorially, but her voice remains loud enough for nearby customers to hear every word. This customer is trying to deposit what I believe is a fraudulent check. $15,000 from some investment firm that supposedly belongs to her son. The whole thing screams scam to me. Professional scam. Mr. Henderson's smile falters as his mind races through worst-case scenarios. Corporate just sent another urgent memo about fraud schemes, complete with statistics about losses and warnings about employee liability. Said they're specifically targeting banks like ours, using certain demographic profiles to manipulate sympathetic employees. If this goes sideways, if Chloe's right and I override her judgment, it's my career on the chopping block. Regional management is already breathing down my neck about our numbers, our customer complaints, our everything. Mrs. Vance, Mr. Henderson says, his voice carrying the condescending tone of someone explaining simple concepts to a child. I understand Chloe's concerns. We've had several incidents recently with sophisticated fake checks targeting our tellers. It's nothing personal, you understand? Just prudent business practice, standard protocol. Eleanor's patience, stretched thin as spider silk over the past 15 minutes, finally begins to fray at the edges. This check is from my son's legitimate business. I can provide additional documentation, references, whatever you need. But I won't be treated like a common criminal in an institution where I've been a loyal customer for over a decade. Mr. Henderson glances at the growing line of customers behind Eleanor, their faces a mixture of curiosity, discomfort, and growing irritation at the delay. An elderly white man in a business suit shakes his head in apparent disgust. Whether at Chloe's behavior or Eleanor's presence remains unclear. A young mother with two small children shifts nervously, checking a watch. Perhaps we should discuss this privately in my office, Mr. Henderson suggests, already regretting getting involved in this mess. Number. Eleanor's voice cuts through the air with unexpected authority, surprising everyone within earshot. If this is how you handle legitimate business customers, then handle it publicly. Let everyone see exactly what kind of bank this is. Let them all witness your customer service standards. A mother's dignity becomes the battleground where institutional prejudice reveals its true face. The atmosphere in the lobby shifts like the moment before a thunderstorm. Other customers stop their conversations mid-sentence, sensing drama unfolding. Cell phones emerge from purses and pockets as people recognize that something significant is happening, something that might end up on social media. Chloe's hands close around the check with predatory determination. Time fractures into crystalline moments as she looks Eleanor directly in the eyes and says, "I've seen enough. This is obviously fake." The sound that follows echoes through the bank's marble cathedral like a gunshot. Sharp, deliberate, final. Chloe tears the check cleanly in half, then quarters. The pieces flutter into the polished counter like confetti made of humiliation and disrespect. The world slows to a crawl. Eleanor watches each fragment fall. The paper bearing her son's careful signature and the company logo he built from nothing, now scattered like broken promises across the cold marble. The tearing sound, crisp as autumn leaves, brutal as breaking bones, cuts through the lobby's usual murmur of mundane transactions and replaces it with shocked silence. "There," Chloe announces to the marble void, her voice carrying a satisfaction that makes stomachs clench throughout the lobby. Obviously fraudulent. I'm not falling for that again, not in my bank. Eleanor's hands tremble as she reaches for the pieces, and around her, the entire world seems to hold its breath. Conversations die mid-sentence, pens pause mid-signature. Even the security guard by the door turns to stare, his weathered face creased with discomfort and disbelief. The silence stretches thick and suffocating, broken only by the soft rustle of paper as Eleanor carefully collects each fragment. Her movements are deliberate, dignified, each piece handled with the reverence usually reserved for family photographs or love letters written by hands that will never be written again. Eleanor's face remains composed, a masterclass in grace under pressure, but her eyes tell a different story. They speak of midnight shifts at the textile factory to pay for her son's business school tuition. They remember the nights she fell asleep at the kitchen table with accounting textbooks spread around her like fallen leaves, helping him understand business principles she'd never formally learned. They hold the memory of every sacrifice, every dream deferred, every hope invested in giving him opportunities she never had. The other customers watch in stunned silence as this dignified woman kneels slightly to retrieve a piece that has drifted to the floor. The elderly veteran takes a step forward, his fists clenched at his sides. A young Latina mother with two small children whispers urgently to her husband in Spanish, their faces tight with recognition and shared pain. "You people need to understand," Chloe continues, her voice growing louder with each word, feeding off the attention and the adrenaline of absolute power. "That we have procedures here, standards. This isn't some community bank where you can just waltz in with homemade checks and expect us to cash them like we're some kind of charity." Eleanor rises slowly, clutching the torn fragments like pieces of her heart. And for just a moment, her composure cracks enough to show the fire burning beneath. The mother of America's youngest black banking CEO picks up the pieces of her shredded dignity. Eleanor steps outside into the crisp October air, her hands still trembling as she pulls out her phone. She walks to the far corner of the parking lot, away from the bank's imposing glass facade with its bronze corporate logo gleaming in the afternoon sun like a monument to institutional power, and dials a number she knows by heart. Samuel, it's Mom. Her voice is steady, controlled, but Samuel Vance, 300 miles away in his corner office on the 42nd floor of a Manhattan skyscraper, can hear the exhaustion threading through her words like a dark current beneath still water. "Mom, what's wrong?" You sound like Samuel sets down his pen and gives her his complete attention. At 32, he's learned to read the subtle shifts in his mother's voice, the spaces between words that speak volumes. They destroyed your support check again. At Sterling Trust, she doesn't use the word humiliated, but it hangs in the autumn air between them like smoke from a distant fire. Tore it up right in front of everyone. Called me a fraud, a criminal. Handle this properly, baby. Handle it right. Samuel closes his eyes and feels his world shift on its axis. He's the youngest black CEO in the banking industry, having just completed the quiet acquisition of a regional chain that includes, ironically, prophetically, Sterling Trust Bank. His mother doesn't know about the acquisition yet. He was planning to surprise her next month. Maybe take her to dinner at that fancy restaurant downtown she always admired but never felt comfortable entering. "Mom, I need you to do something for me. Are you listening?" "I'm listening, baby." Go back inside. Ask to speak with the branch manager again. Don't leave until they make this right. "Samuel, honey, I don't think that's such a good idea. These people, they've made up their minds about me. They see what they want to see, and nothing I say is going to change that. Trust me, Mom. One more time. And Mom, He pauses, thinking of all the times she worked 3 jobs to pay for his education. All the nights she fell asleep at the kitchen table with accounting textbooks spread around her like fallen leaves, helping him understand business principles through sheer determination and love. Remember what you taught me about staying silent? Eleanor's smile blooms across her face for the first time all day, warming her from the inside out. Sometimes staying quiet keeps you safe, but it never keeps you right. Exactly. Go back inside, Mom, and this time, don't you dare stay quiet. The call ends, but Eleanor remains in the parking lot for another moment, watching clouds gather overhead like an approaching storm. She thinks about the lessons she taught her son about dignity and justice and the terrible weight of doing what's right, when it would be so much easier to simply walk away and pretend this never happened. She thinks about all the other mothers, all the other families who don't have powerful sons to call, who have to swallow this kind of treatment and smile and say thank you, because they need the bank more than the bank needs them. Not today, not anymore. The call that will change everything has been made to the one person with power to act. Eleanor walks back through the bank's heavy glass doors, and Chloe's face immediately hardens into a mask of irritation and disbelief. Ma'am, I thought we were done here. I thought I made myself clear. I'd like to speak with Mr. Henderson again. There seems to be some confusion about my account status. There's no confusion, Chloe snaps, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. You tried to deposit a fake check. I caught you. End of story. But Mr. Henderson appears within seconds anyway, clearly hoping to resolve this situation before it metastasizes into something that reaches regional management. His shirt shows sweat stains under the arms, despite the building's aggressive air conditioning. Mrs. Vance, I think we've handled this appropriately. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable banking with one of our competitors. There are several community banks in the area that might be better suited to your particular needs. Eleanor looks him directly in the eyes. You mean the ones that actually respect their customers regardless of skin color? The words hang in the air like an accusation no one wants to acknowledge. Mr. Henderson's face flushes red, then white, then red again. That's not what I meant at all, he stammers, but his protest sounds hollow, even to his own ears. Chloe calls over the security guard, a burly ex-cop who's worked bank security for 15 years and has seen this particular drama play out more times than he cares to count. Security. This customer is become a disruptive, belligerent. Can you escort her out before she causes more problems? The guard approaches reluctantly, his heavy footsteps echoing off the marble floor like a funeral march. He's a good man, raised right by parents who taught him to treat everyone with respect. And this whole situation sits in his stomach like bad food. But he's also got a job to do, a paycheck to protect, a family to feed. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises to try to deposit a legitimate business check. For asking to be treated with basic human respect in an institution where I've been a customer for 12 years. Other customers begin to murmur among themselves, their conversations growing louder and more pointed with each passing minute. A young Latino woman with 2 small children whispers urgently to her husband in Spanish, their eyes darting between Eleanor and the bank employees. An elderly black veteran approaches the growing crowd. "Excuse me," the veteran says to Mr. Henderson. his voice carrying the authority of someone who's faced down enemies, foreign and domestic. But I've been watching this whole thing unfold. That lady wasn't doing anything wrong. Nothing at all. "Sir, this doesn't concern you," Mr. Henderson replies tersely. But his confidence wavers under the veteran's steady gaze. Treating people with dignity and respect concerns all of us. That's what I fought for overseas. That's what my buddies died for, and I'll be damned if I'm going to stand here and watch you disrespect this woman for no good reason. Chloe's voice rises to a near shout, cracking with stress and fear and the adrenaline of someone who feels cornered. She tried to deposit a fake check, a $15,000 fake check. I'm protecting this bank from fraud, from criminals who think they can waltz in here and steal from us. The lobby buzzes with competing conversations, most of them critical of Chloe's behavior and tone. Cell phones emerge from purses and pockets like weapons being drawn for battle. Videos begin recording. This is going viral whether the bank likes it or not. A community of witnesses gathers as institutional bias reveals its poisonous face. Mr. Henderson feels the situation spiraling beyond his control like a car skidding on black ice toward an inevitable crash. The lobby buzzes with conversation, most of it critical and getting louder by the minute, and he knows that corporate complaints are inevitable at this point. His job security, his mortgage payments, his daughter's college fund, everything depends on maintaining order and avoiding the kind of publicity that makes regional directors start asking uncomfortable questions about leadership and liability. "Everyone, please return to your business," he announces to the lobby with forced authority that fools no one. "This is a private matter between the bank and this customer. Nothing to see here. Please give us some space to resolve this professionally." But privacy is the last thing on Eleanor's mind now. She's thinking about her son's words, about the lessons she taught him during those late nights at the kitchen table, about the choice between safety and righteousness that defines every moment of moral courage. "This is exactly what my son warned me about," she says clearly, her voice carrying to every corner of the marble space. "The way banks systematically treat people who don't fit your comfortable demographic assumptions. The way you assume the worst about people who look like me. Ma'am, your son's opinions don't change the facts," Mr. Henderson replies. But something about Eleanor's composure unnerves him. She doesn't act like someone who's been caught attempting fraud. She doesn't seem desperate or defensive. She acts like someone who's been wronged and knows exactly what to do about it. She acts like someone who has power she hasn't revealed yet. Chloe, emboldened by Mr. Henderson's support and terrified of appearing weak in front of her colleagues, decides to escalate. "Dave, call the police. I want her charged with attempted bank fraud and criminal trespass. Make sure they know she's been disruptive and threatening our staff." The lobby falls silent, except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant sound of traffic outside. Eleanor's face remains calm, but her mind races through possibilities and consequences. Samuel told her to trust him, but this has crossed a line she never imagined. Being arrested would destroy her small business reputation in the community, would humiliate her family, would give these people exactly what they seem to want. "Before you do that," Eleanor says quietly, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade through silk, "you might want to check your corporate directory, mister. Henderson frowns, confusion replacing anger on his face. What do you mean by that? Check who owns this bank now. Check who signs your paychecks. Check who has the authority to fire every single person in this building. Chloe laughs, but it sounds forced, hysterical, like the laugh of someone who's realized they might have made a terrible mistake but can't figure out how to back down. Right. And I suppose you're some secret millionaire, some undercover bank inspector? But something in Eleanor's tone, something in her absolute confidence, makes Mr. Henderson profoundly uncomfortable. He's heard rumors about the recent acquisition, whispers about changes coming to their corporate structure, but the details have been kept confidential at the highest levels. His phone buzzes with an incoming call from regional headquarters. Then it buzzes again. Then the main bank line starts ringing insistently. The moment before revelation hangs in the air like lightning waiting to strike. The massive LCD screen above the lobby flickers like a dying fluorescent bulb, transitioning from its usual mortgage rate advertisements to corporate messaging that will change everything in the next 30 seconds. The transition happens in slow motion, each pixel shifting like pieces of a puzzle, rearranging themselves into a picture that will redefine everyone's understanding of power and consequence. Sterling Trust Bank is proud to announce our new leadership structure following our recent acquisition by Vance Capital Holdings. The announcement reads in crisp corporate font that seems to grow larger with each word. Please join us in welcoming our new Chief Executive Officer, Samuel Vance, as he leads us into a new era of community-focused banking excellence. A professional headshot fills the 40-inch screen. Young, confident, wearing a navy suit that costs more than Chloe makes in 2 months. The resemblance to Eleanor is unmistakable. The same intelligent eyes, the same strong jawline, the same quiet determination that has carried her through this ordeal with dignity intact. Chloe's face drains of color like someone has opened a valve and let all the blood flow out. Her hands begin to shake uncontrollably, and she grabs the edge of the counter to keep from falling. That's not possible. That can't be real. Vance Capital Holdings, Eleanor says quietly, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent lobby like a prayer or a prophecy. The same company on the check you just destroyed. The same company that now owns this bank. The same company is run by my son. Mr. Henderson's phone erupts with calls from regional headquarters. The electronic sound pierced the air like an alarm. Then Chloe's phone starts buzzing. Then the main bank line begins ringing insistently, creating a symphony of electronic panic that fills the marble space with the sound of careers ending and consequences arriving. Oh God, Chloe whispers, staring at the screen like she's witnessing her own execution. Oh God, oh God, oh God, I didn't know. How could I know? The lobby erupts in whispers and pointing fingers and the unmistakable sound of justice, arriving fashionably late but with devastating precision. The elderly veteran grins widely and starts clapping slowly, deliberately, each clap echoing off the marble walls like gunshots celebrating victory. Other customers join in until the applause fills the marble-walled space like thunder, echoing off the high ceiling and polished floors. Eleanor pulls out her phone and dials Samuel's number with steady fingers. When he answers on the first ring, she holds the phone up so he can hear the commotion, the applause, the sound of Chloe's quiet sobbing, the electronic chaos of multiple phones ringing at once. Samuel, honey, I think your surprise announcement just went live. From 300 miles away, her son's laughter carries across the lobby, audible to everyone standing nearby, rich with love and justice and the sweet satisfaction of perfectly executed plans. Regional Director Patricia Coleman's voice crackles through Mr. Henderson's phone, loud enough for nearby customers to hear every word. Mr. Henderson, please tell me you haven't just publicly humiliated the new CEO's mother. Please tell me this is some kind of nightmare I'm going to wake up from. The CEO's mother watches her son's face dominate the screen of the bank that destroyed her dignity. Mr. Henderson's hands shake like autumn leaves in a hurricane as he answers his phone with trembling fingers. The voice on the other end belongs to his regional director, and she's speaking very quickly and very quietly, which in corporate terms means someone's career is about to end in spectacular fashion. Mr. Henderson, are you looking at the lobby screens right now? Yes, ma'am. I'm looking at them. Tell me, please, for the love of all that's holy, tell me that you haven't just humiliated the new CEO's mother in front of a lobby full of witnesses who are currently posting videos to every social media platform known to humanity. Mr. Henderson looks at Eleanor, who's now surrounded by supportive customers and smiling for the first time since she entered the bank. The elderly veteran has his arm around her shoulders like a protective father. Cell phones are recording everything from multiple angles. This is going viral whether he likes it or not. And going viral in the banking industry is never, ever good. I.e., there may have been a miscommunication. A miscommunication? Mr. Henderson, my phone is ringing off the hook. Apparently, your teller destroyed a legitimate business check and called security on Eleanor Vance. Do you understand who Eleanor Vance is? Do you comprehend the magnitude of what you've done? Do you have any idea how many zeros are in the lawsuit that's probably being drafted right now? Chloe has slumped into a chair behind the teller counter, her head in her hands, her career dissolving like sugar in rain. The security guard has quietly retreated to his post by the door, suddenly fascinated by his shoes and wishing he'd called in sick today, wishing he'd never taken this job, wishing he was anywhere else in the universe. No, man. The check looked suspicious. Chloe followed protocol. The check was from Vance Capital Holdings. Mr. Henderson, the company that just bought us, the company that signs your paychecks, the company that owns this building, your desk, and apparently your future employment prospects. And you let your teller shred it and humiliate the CEO's mother in front of a lobby full of witnesses who are currently posting videos to social media with hashtags I don't even want to think about. Eleanor approaches the phone conversation with the grace of someone who suddenly realized she holds all the cards and has decided to play them with surgical precision. Mr. Henderson reluctantly hands her the receiver like he's passing along a live grenade with the pin already pulled. This is Eleanor Vance. Yes, Samuel is my son. No, this doesn't reflect well on your branch's training protocols or corporate culture. Yes, I think we need to discuss this properly and very soon. The conversation continues for several minutes, with Eleanor's calm, professional voice contrasting sharply with the panic-stricken responses coming through the phone. Other customers gather around, some recording the conversation, others simply witnessing history in the making. 20 minutes later, Samuel Vance walks through the front doors of Sterling Trust Bank like a conquering general returning to claim his territory. He's made a 3-hour drive from Manhattan in record time, his company helicopter having delivered him to a nearby building's rooftop landing pad. His navy suit is perfectly pressed, his tie impeccable, but his eyes show the controlled fury of a son who's just learned his mother was publicly humiliated by his own employees. The lobby falls silent as he enters, conversations stopping mid-sentence as people recognize the face from the screen. Eleanor stands near the teller windows, now surrounded by bank employees who suddenly remember their customer service training and are desperately trying to make amends for disasters they had no part in creating. Chloe remains seated behind a counter, no longer able to make eye contact with anyone. Her world has collapsed around her like a house of cards in a hurricane. Samuel approaches his mother first, embracing her gently while the cameras continue rolling. "Are you okay, Mom?" "I'm fine, baby, but we need to talk about your policies here." He turns to address the lobby, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to boardrooms and billion-dollar decisions. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disruption to your banking experience today. My name is Samuel Vance, and as of this morning, I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Sterling Trust Bank and its parent company, Vance Capital Holdings." The lobby remains silent, hanging on every word. "Mom, do you remember what you told me when I was 12 and Jimmy Morrison called me the N-word at school?" Eleanor nods, her eyes glistening with pride and memory. "I told you that sometimes staying quiet keeps you safe, but it never keeps you right. You taught me that dignity isn't something people give you. It's something you give yourself. And you taught me that when you have power, you use it to protect people who don't have any." He turns to face Chloe, who's now standing behind the counter, tears streaming down her face like a river of regret and terror. "Miss Cole, can you explain to me why you destroyed my company's check and called security on my mother?" Chloe stares at the woman she believed was beneath her, now revealed as her ultimate boss's mother. But before Chloe can answer, Samuel continues. "Actually, let me ask you something else first. Do you have children, Ms. Cole?" Chloe nods numbly. "A daughter," she said. "And if someone treated you the way you treated my mother today, tore up your paycheck, called you a fraud, humiliated you in front of strangers, how would that make you feel?" The question hangs in the air like a challenge to empathy. Samuel requests the security footage immediately, and within minutes, the entire incident plays out on Mr. Henderson's office computer screen in high-definition humiliation. Eleanor watches her own degradation with clinical detachment, but Samuel's jaw tightens with each passing second like a coiled spring under increasing pressure. When Chloe begins tearing the check, Eleanor quietly says, "Turn it off. I don't need to see that again." Samuel pauses the video and turns to face his mother with the weight of decision pressing down on his shoulders. "Mom, if you were me right now, if you had the power to fix this, to make sure it never happens again to anyone, what would you do? Would you forgive them?" Eleanor considers the question with the gravity it deserves, thinking about Chloe's tears, about Mr. Henderson's obvious terror, about the systemic problems that created this situation in the first place. She thinks about her son's career, his reputation, the precedent this will set for every other minority family who walks through these doors. Samuel, baby, I didn't raise you to be cruel, but I also didn't raise you to let cruelty go unpunished, though. What's the right thing to do? The right thing isn't always the easy thing. Chloe made a choice based on fear and prejudice. Mr. Henderson enabled that choice and created the environment where it could flourish. But they're also products of a system that taught them to think this way. She pauses, looking through the office window at Chloe, who's clearly fighting a complete emotional breakdown. I raised you to do what's right, not what's easy. That means holding people accountable while also creating opportunities for them to become better human beings. Samuel nods slowly, understanding flooding his features like dawn breaking over a long night. So, consequences with compassion, justice with humanity, always justice with humanity. But then Eleanor asks the question that changes everything. Samuel, what's Chloe's story? Why is she so afraid? Samuel pulls up Chloe's employment file on his computer. Single mother. The previous employer terminated her for processing a fraudulent check. $17,000 in losses. She's been supporting her daughter alone, no child support, working multiple jobs. Eleanor's expression softens. And Mr. Henderson grew up in foster care. First person in his family to graduate college. He's terrified of failure because he's never had a safety net. Eleanor looks at her son with pride and sadness mixed together like watercolors bleeding into each other. Fear makes people do terrible things, baby. But fear also means they're human. They made mistakes born out of desperation, not malice. Samuel opens his laptop and begins typing with the focused intensity of someone reshaping the world one policy at a time. Chloe will be terminated from this position, effective immediately, but we'll offer her a role in our customer relations department after she completes comprehensive bias training. Mr. Henderson will be demoted, but kept on staff with mandatory sensitivity training. Both incidents will be documented, but with pathways for redemption and my daughter's future, full scholarship fund for her education, health care coverage, because children shouldn't pay for their parents' mistakes. Within the hour, Samuel has transformed consequences into opportunities for growth. Chloe cleans out her desk while learning about her new position in customer advocacy. She approaches Eleanor before leaving, her face streaked with tears and genuine remorse. Mrs. Vance, I was so scared of losing my job again that I became the very thing I was afraid of, someone who destroys other people's opportunities. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Eleanor studies the young woman's face, seeing not an enemy, but a fellow mother trying to survive in a system designed to pit them against each other. Chloe, fear makes us do ugly things sometimes, but it doesn't excuse them. You have a chance now to learn from this, to help other people who walk through these doors. Don't waste it. Corporate consequences ripple outward like stones thrown into still water. Mr. Henderson receives his new position and training requirements with surprising grace, perhaps recognizing that he's lucky to have a career left at all. I guess I learned something today, too, he tells Samuel during their restructuring meeting about assumptions and what they cost, about the difference between following rules and doing what's right, about how my own fears turn me into someone I don't want to be. The story spread through social media like wildfire in drought conditions. The bank's CEO protects mother from discrimination at his own branch, becomes a viral headline within hours. But the deeper story about redemption, second chances, and addressing root causes instead of just symptoms resonates even more powerfully. The security footage released with Eleanor's permission and Samuel's strategic blessing shows the complete incident from beginning to end. The contempt, the humiliation, the revelation, and most importantly, the compassionate response that followed. It becomes a masterclass in leadership under pressure, an incomprehensible whisper, a warning. But Samuel uses the attention strategically like a master chess player, converting a defensive move into a winning attack that reshapes the entire game. He announces company-wide reforms that send shock waves through the banking industry, mandatory bias training for all employees, new complaint procedures that protect customers from discrimination, economic support systems for employees facing financial stress, and a policy review committee that includes community representatives. This isn't just about one bad interaction, he tells reporters at a hastily arranged press conference. This is about systemic change in how financial institutions serve all communities regardless of race, income, or social status. But it's also about recognizing that employees are human beings with fears and pressures that can lead to poor decisions. We're addressing both sides of the equation. Eleanor appears beside him at the press conference, dignified and forgiving, but firm in her message. This happened to me, but it happens to countless others who don't have the privilege of having a CEO for a son. What makes this story different is that we're choosing to respond with both accountability and compassion. We're choosing to lift people up instead of just tearing them down. A mother's humiliation becomes the catalyst for industry-wide transformation. 6 months later, the Sterling Trust Bank incident has become required reading in business schools across the country. Harvard Business School publishes a case study titled Crisis, Leadership, and Social Responsibility, the Vance Method. Samuel has implemented the most comprehensive anti-discrimination and employee support program in the banking industry, and financial institutions from coast to coast are quietly adopting similar policies to avoid their own viral disasters. Eleanor visits the same branch regularly now, not because she needs to conduct business there, but because she wants to observe the changes taking root, like flowers in soil that's been enriched by difficult lessons. The new primary teller, a young black woman fresh out of college, greets every customer with genuine warmth and professional competence. Chloe, now working in customer advocacy, helps families navigate banking services and has become one of the branch's most effective employees. The thing people don't understand, Eleanor tells a gathering of business leaders at a conference on corporate responsibility, is that this was never about revenge. It was never about destroying anyone's life or career. It was about recognition. Recognition that every person who walks through those doors deserves respect, regardless of what they look like, how they dress, or how much money they have in their account. She pauses, looking out at the audience of executives and entrepreneurs, seeing some nodding heads and some uncomfortable faces shifting in their seats. My son learned something important that day about the weight of power and the responsibility that comes with it. But I learned something too. I learned that sometimes staying quiet isn't an option anymore. Sometimes speaking up is the only way to protect the next person who might walk through those doors. And sometimes the people who hurt us are hurting too. And healing has to happen on both sides. Samuel introduces partnerships with community organizations that go far beyond public relations gestures. Mentorship programs for young entrepreneurs from underrepresented backgrounds. Linden initiatives that focus on economic empowerment rather than just profit margins. Investment in minority-owned businesses that traditional banks have historically ignored, but also employee assistance programs, mental health support, and financial counseling for staff members struggling with their own economic pressures. The changes ripple outward like concentric circles in a pond. Other industries begin examining their own practices. Retail chains update their customer service training. Restaurant groups implement bias awareness programs. The conversation spread beyond banking into every sector where customer service intersects with social justice and human dignity. Should she reveal her identity now or wait for justice? One mother's dignity becomes a template for institutional change across multiple industries. 1 year later, Eleanor and Samuel sit together in the same Sterling Trust Bank lobby where the incident occurred. But they're not conducting business. They're observing the anniversary of a day that changed both their lives and, in small but measurable ways, changed the world around them. "Do you ever regret it?" Samuel asks, watching the easy interactions between diverse staff and customers, noting the absence of tension that once hung in this space like smoke. Going back inside that day, instead of just walking away and never looking back, Eleanor watches a young Latina mother deposit her paycheck without incident, her children playing quietly while she conducts her business with dignity intact. She observes an elderly black man receiving courteous assistance with his business loan application. The staff member takes time to explain options and answer questions. She sees Chloe helping a confused elderly woman understand her statement. Patient and kind and completely transformed from the person who tore up a check a year ago. Baby, regret is what you feel when you don't do the right thing. I did the right thing, you did the right thing, and look what came from it. Samuel nods, then asks the question that's been weighing on him for months. Do you think it's enough? These changes we've made, these policies we've implemented, is it enough to balance the scales? It's a start. Real change happens one person at a time, one interaction at a time, one choice at a time. She stands, smoothing her dress, the same navy cardigan she wore that day, now somehow transformed into a symbol of quiet resistance and eventual triumph. Come on, let's go home. Your father's making his famous chili, and he wants to hear about your presentation to the Federal Reserve Board. As they walk toward the exit, Eleanor pauses at the customer service desk, where a sign now reads, "Sterling Trust Bank is committed to serving all customers with dignity, respect, and equality." If you experience anything less than our highest standards of service, please contact our customer advocacy line immediately, because everyone deserves to be heard. The thing about dignity, Eleanor says, reading the sign with satisfaction, is that it's contagious. When you demand it for yourself, you make it easier for the next person to demand it too. And when you offer it to others, even when they've failed to offer it to you, you change the whole conversation. Samuel smiles, remembering a lesson from childhood about the difference between being safe and being right, about the courage required to stand up when it would be easier to sit down, about the power of forgiveness to transform enemies into allies. A mother's quiet strength becomes a legacy of institutional change that will outlast them both. 2 years have passed since the incident that transformed not just one bank, but an entire industry's approach to customer service and corporate responsibility. Eleanor Vance stands before a congressional committee studying discrimination in financial services. Her testimony carries the weight of lived experience and documented change that has reverberated across multiple sectors of the American economy. The committee room is packed with reporters, advocates, and industry representatives. Cameras from major networks capture every word, broadcasting live to millions of viewers who have followed this story from viral video to policy transformation. Senators, distinguished members of this committee, Eleanor begins, her voice steady and strong. What happened to me 2 years ago wasn't unique. It wasn't an isolated incident or a rare occurrence. It was routine. It was systematic. The only difference was that my son had the power to do something about it. She looks directly at the cameras broadcasting the hearing live to millions of viewers. But that raises a question we all need to answer. What happens to everyone else's mothers, everyone else's families, everyone else's dignity? The committee room falls silent, except for the clicking of photographers' cameras and the quiet hum of recording equipment capturing history in the making. Change can't depend on coincidence. It can't rely on victims happening to have powerful children or connections in high places. It has to be systematic, intentional, and permanent. Senator Patricia Williams, the committee chair, leans forward. Mrs. Vance, can you tell us about the specific policy changes that resulted from your experience? Eleanor's face lights up with pride. Senator, it started with accountability. The employees involved face consequences for their actions. But it didn't end there. My son implemented comprehensive bias training, employee support programs, and community oversight mechanisms. More importantly, he addressed the root causes that led to those actions in the first place. Can you elaborate on those root causes? Fear, Senator, economic fear, job insecurity, lack of understanding about different communities. The young woman who humiliated me was a single mother terrified of losing her job. The manager who enabled her was someone who had grown up in foster care and had never learned to feel secure. My son could have just fired him and moved on. Instead, he created pathways for redemption while still maintaining accountability. Samuel, watching from the gallery, thinks about the ripple effects of that October day 2 years ago. 17 major banks have adopted similar anti-discrimination policies. Business schools now teach the Sterling Trust case study as an example of crisis management and corporate social responsibility. 3 states have passed legislation requiring bias training in financial institutions. But more than that, the conversation has shifted from punishment to transformation. But more than policy changes, something cultural has shifted across the country. The video of Eleanor picking up her shredded check has been viewed 47 million times across all platforms. It's become a symbol of dignity under pressure, of grace in the face of injustice, of the power that comes from doing what's right, even when it's not easy. The question before us today, Eleanor continues, her voice steady and strong, isn't whether discrimination exists in our financial institutions. We know it does. The question is whether we have the courage to admit it and the determination to change it, not just through punishment, but through understanding, education, and creating systems that support both customers and employees. Senator Michael Rodriguez raises his hand. Mrs. Vance, some critics have argued that your son's response was too lenient, that discrimination should result in immediate termination without second chances. How do you respond to that? Eleanor considers the question carefully. Senator, I understand that perspective, and there are certainly cases where immediate termination is the only appropriate response. But in our situation, we had an opportunity to address systemic issues instead of just individual symptoms. Chloe, the teller who discriminated against me, is now one of our most effective customer advocates. She helps families who have been marginalized by financial institutions because she understands what it feels like to be desperate and afraid. That transformation wouldn't have happened if we had simply destroyed her life in response to her destroying my dignity. Will you choose silence or be the first to speak the truth? The words echo, not just in the committee room, but in boardrooms and break rooms, in community centers and college classrooms across the country. They echo in the hearts of everyone who has ever been judged by their appearance rather than their character. Everyone who has ever been made to feel small by people who mistake power for worth. When Eleanor finishes her testimony, the applause lasts 3 full minutes. Committee members from both parties thank her for her courage and insight. The gallery erupts in a standing ovation that seems to shake the marble pillars of the Capitol building itself. But Eleanor isn't listening to the applause. She's thinking about Chloe, who completed her training and now helps families access financial services at a community credit union before transitioning to her advocacy role at Sterling Trust. She's thinking about Mr. Henderson, who used his demotion as motivation to become a consultant, helping banks across the nation examine their practices and create more equitable systems. Most of all, she's thinking about her son, who learned that power without compassion is just another form of oppression, and that true leadership means lifting others up rather than simply climbing higher yourself, even when those others have hurt you. As she gathers her papers and prepares to leave the witness table, Eleanor Vance, mother, business owner, catalyst for change, offers one final thought to the committee and the millions watching around the world. Justice isn't something that happens to us. It's something we create. One choice at a time, one voice at a time, one moment of courage at a time. But justice without mercy is just revenge. And revenge doesn't heal anything. The only question that matters is this: when your moment comes, when you see injustice happening right in front of you, what will you choose to do about it? And when you have the power to respond, will you choose destruction or transformation? The hearing adjourns, but the work continues, because dignity once demanded and won becomes a standard that can never again be compromised. Because courage once demonstrated inspires others to find their own voice. Because justice, once achieved with compassion, lights the way for everyone who follows. The mother who walked into that bank 2 years ago, seeking nothing more than basic respect, has become something larger than herself, a symbol of what's possible when ordinary people refuse to accept the unacceptable, when they choose to speak truth to power, regardless of the consequences, and when those with power choose to respond with both accountability and grace. But as Eleanor walks out of the Capitol building and into the bright afternoon sunlight, she carries with her one final question that will follow her audience long after the cameras stop rolling and the headlines fade. If you were in that bank lobby 2 years ago watching a 60-year-old black woman being humiliated by people who held power over her, what would you have done? Would you have stayed silent to protect your own comfort? Or would you have found the courage to speak up for someone who couldn't protect herself? And if you found yourself in Chloe's position, desperate, afraid, making choices born of fear rather than hatred, would you want a world that offered only punishment, or one that provided a pathway to redemption? A mother's courage becomes a nation's call to conscience, echoing forward into a future where dignity is not negotiable, but where the path to justice runs through the difficult terrain of understanding, forgiveness, and the belief that people can change. When given the opportunity to do better, the story ends.